A beloved American backpacking name got quietly swallowed by a company that built its business on cheap Walmart sleeping bags. Right now, you might own a tent, a pack, or a bag carrying a 70-year-old logo you trust, and that trust was built by a different company than the one making the gear today. This video exposes how that happened, stage by stage. The ownership changes buyers never saw, the warranty that stops working when you need it, and the catalog drift nobody warns you about. Then we name what's still worth every penny, and one pick will surprise you. I'm Ranger Jack. 17 years outfitting clients on alpine and winter routes, no brand deals, no sponsorships. I started logging failed gear the night a bag went cold on a client at altitude, and that logbook is why ownership matters more than a tag. Number 7, the 1972 sale to CML Incorporated. You buy a name like this because the name is supposed to mean something. In 1972, Dick Kelty sold his company to CML, a Boston-based leisure goods conglomerate that had nothing to do with backcountry engineering. He stayed on as chairman for 6 more years, which is exactly why nothing broke immediately. But here's the problem buyers never think about. The moment a founder sells, the people making decisions stop being the person who tested gear on his own back and start being people managing a portfolio of unrelated leisure products. That's not a failure yet. It's the first crack in a lineage you assume never changed. You think you're buying decades of one person's obsession with getting the frame, the fabric, and the fit right. What you're actually buying from this point forward is whatever a rotating cast of executives decides that obsession is worth continuing to fund. The name stayed, the hands changed. And that was only ownership change number 1. Number 6, the 1979 move to American Recreation Products. By 1979, Kelty passed to American Recreation Products, a Boulder-based outdoor holding company. On the surface, this looked like a fine home, still specialty grade, still sitting next to genuinely serious outdoor brands on the same shelf. But Kelty's identity now depends entirely on someone else's business priorities, not a founder's personal standards. To be fair, the packs and tents from this era were legitimately respected, and that's the nuance that matters here. Nothing collapsed. But the pattern was now permanently set. A corporate parent decides what Kelty gets to become next, not the person who built the reputation you're relying on when you click buy. Still good gear in this stretch. Still someone else's call. And here's the part buyers miss when they see a founding date proudly printed on a hang tag. A founding date tells you when something started. It tells you nothing about who's actually running the company today or what else that company happens to manufacture. Then a much bigger buyer came looking. Number 5, the Kelwood years, 1988 through 2015. For 27 years, Kelty sat inside Kelwood, a company whose real business was women's and juniors' apparel, labels built for fashion retail racks, not backcountry survival conditions. You were buying technical outdoor equipment being managed by a fashion holding company with zero specialization in outdoor engineering. That's not neglect exactly. It's an absence of focus, stretched out over almost 3 decades. An absence of focus is much harder to spot than an obvious failure. Pricing stayed at premium levels the entire time. Investment in the actual mechanics of the gear, poles, frames, insulation systems, fabric coatings, did not necessarily keep pace with that pricing. Nothing dramatic happened during this era. That's exactly what makes it dangerous. This is the slow, quiet setup for what comes next. And buyers had no visible reason to notice anything was different, because on the shelf, the box looked identical to the one their parents bought. You do not discover an absence of investment on a product page. You discover it years later, when you compare an old pack you still own to the new version sitting next to it in the store, and the materials feel like a step down, while the price tag has only gone up. This is the part of the story with no headline, no press release, and no obvious villain. Just 3 decades of a fashion company quietly managing an outdoor brand it never fully understood. And in 2015, the buyer changes everything. Number 4, the 2015 Excel Outdoors acquisition. this is where it gets real. In 2015, Excel Outdoors bought Kelty and its sister brand, Sierra Designs. Press coverage at the time called it growth, folding respected specialty names into a bigger company with more distribution. Here's what that coverage didn't emphasize enough. Excel's core business for years was mass-market sleeping bags sold at Walmart, Target, and Big Five sporting goods, the exact opposite market tier from the backcountry reputation Kelty spent decades earning trip by trip. You now had a volume manufacturer built around low-cost production and thin margins on huge unit counts, owning the exact brand that used to compete head-to-head with premium Alpine names on price and on performance. Excel's own brand materials openly describe merging technology, like its dry-down treatment, across brands, including Kelty and Sierra Designs. That's efficient for the company's bottom line. It's blurry for you, the buyer, because you now have no reliable way of knowing which supply chain, which factory standard, and which quality control process your specific piece of gear actually came out of. You feel like you're paying for the Kelty you remember. You may actually be paying for whatever production line happened to be open that quarter. The logo didn't change one bit. The company standing behind that logo changed completely. This is the moment in the story where Made by Kelty quietly stopped meaning the same thing it meant for the first 60-some years of this brand's life, even though nobody sent out a press release telling buyers to update their expectations. And this is close to where my own cold night failure starts making sense. The bag that quit on my client at altitude was already carrying a badge that meant something structurally different than it used to mean. Number 3, catalog drift toward leisure and comfort products. Go browse Kelty's site today and look at what's actually selling. You'll find camp couches, blankets, love seats, and casual folding chairs sitting directly next to technical tents and technical sleeping bags, all wearing the exact same name, priced with the exact same confidence. There is nothing wrong with a camp couch on its own merits. The problem is what happens to a company's attention, research budget, and engineering focus when comfort products and backcountry-grade products are forced to share one badge and one marketing team. If you're shopping specifically for Alpine-grade equipment, you are one click away from leisure-grade construction wearing the identical logo you came here trusting. That blanket is fine for what it is. That tent needs to survive a storm. Treating them as equally engineered because they share a name is exactly how buyers end up disappointed at 10,000 feet. One badge. Two very different jobs with two very different consequences if you get the swap wrong. Ask yourself right now, before your next order, is the thing you're buying built to sit in a backyard or built to survive a ridge line? The site will not always make that distinction obvious for you, and the next one is where the warranty stops backing that badge up at all. Number 2, the warranty that doesn't hold up when you actually file a claim. Kelty markets a limited lifetime warranty, and that phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting on the product page. Here's what buyers actually report once something breaks. Documented customer reviews describe repair claims taking many months to resolve, customers being told to ship failed gear back at their own expense so the company can attempt a repair, and international buyers being told in Kelty's own published FAQ that they're largely on their own for repairs outside the United States. One reviewer waited 7 months on a zipper fault affecting 2 children's sleeping bags before finally being offered a fix that would have cost more than the bags were worth to ship internationally. Another described a new tent with pole cords that snapped and frayed on the very first setup, and being asked to pay to send it back before the company would even discuss a repair. That is not one unlucky customer. That is a documented, repeating pattern across independent review platforms. You are paying a premium price partly for the promise of that lifetime backup sitting behind you. A warranty on paper is not a warranty in practice, and you do not discover the gap until the exact moment you need it most, mid-trip, with no working sleeping bag and no working phone signal to argue your case. Think about what lifetime is supposed to communicate on a hang tag. It's supposed to tell you the company stands behind its own engineering for as long as you own the product. What these accounts describe instead is a company that treats a warranty claim as a negotiation to be won, not a promise to be kept. That gap between the word on the tag and the process behind the counter is exactly the kind of thing you cannot spec out ahead of time. You only learn it the hard way, usually on the trip where you needed it most. And the last one is the one insiders admit out loud. Number 1, a legacy name running on momentum instead of investment. This is the biggest trap on this entire list, and it's not a single defective product. It's the whole brand. Reported insider accounts describe Kelty's growth as nearly flat year over year, propped up largely by camp chairs and comfort items, rather than core technical gear inside a company reportedly criticized internally for prioritizing cheap production over any real long-term brand direction. I want to be fair about this. These are reported employee accounts, not confirmed audited financial statements, and I'm framing them exactly that way, not as proven fact. But they line up with everything else on this list. A brand still charging flagship prices for its technical line, while, by these accounts, not being developed or invested in like an actual flagship anymore. Think about what that means for you specifically. You are not just risking one bad tent or one bad bag. You are betting on a company's future direction every time you pay full price for something with this name on it, and the reported internal picture suggests that direction is mostly holding steady, not climbing. That rented sleeping bag that failed my client at real altitude wasn't a random defect I got unlucky with. It was a 70-year-old badge doing more emotional and financial work than the company standing behind it was actually doing engineering work. The biggest trap in this whole story isn't a bad zipper or a bad seam. It's a legacy name coasting on momentum while you're the one paying the flagship price to keep that momentum going for another quarter. Here's the price logic that ties all 7 of these together. A cheap product failing is almost forgivable. The construction budget was never there to begin with, and you knew that going in. An expensive product failing is a different kind of problem, because the whole reason you paid extra was to avoid exactly this outcome. Somewhere in the middle, a mid-priced product charging close to premium alternatives while quietly missing premium components is the sneakiest version of all, because it looks like a smart compromise right up until the moment it isn't. At every price point on Kelty's current shelf, the honest question is the same one. At this price, what should you actually be getting? Sometimes the answer still holds up. Increasingly, by these 7 points, it doesn't. That's what to avoid. Now here's what still genuinely justifies the money, because not everything with this badge deserves the same warning. First, Kelty's Tactical and Military Spec Division. This line is built to defense-grade sourcing and compliance requirements, a narrower, far more accountability-heavy standard that simply doesn't bend the way the general consumer catalog has been allowed to drift. When a product line has to meet government procurement specifications, there is much less room for the quiet dilution we just spent 7 items exposing. That is a real structural difference in how the product is required to be built, not a marketing claim you have to take on faith. And it's worth remembering the next time you see the same brand name sitting on a completely different shelf next to a camp blanket, promising something the blanket was never built to promise. Second, Kelty's core external frame packs, the direct descendants of Dick Kelty's original aluminum frame design from 1952. This is the one corner of the catalog where the construction logic hasn't visibly drifted from the exact reason people trusted this name in the first place. Named materials, a clear, honest use case, a design built specifically around carrying real weight over real mileage, not around looking rugged in a product photo. 60-plus years later, the basic engineering problem it solves hasn't changed, and neither has the way this line solves it. This is genuinely what's still sitting on my own gear list, and I don't say that about many things on this brand's shelf anymore. Third, and this one will actually surprise you, an honest entry-level Kelty tent, not because it's alpine grade, it isn't, and to its credit, it doesn't pretend to be anywhere in its marketing. It earns its spot because the price matches exactly what you're getting. A simple 3-season shelter meant for car camping and short, mild-weather trips, sold at a fair number, without borrowing the technical language of the backcountry grade tents it happens to share a logo with. Same skeptical logic as every warning in this video, opposite conclusion at the end of it. Sometimes the honest budget product is the smart buy precisely because it never tries to overclaim what it can actually do for you when the forecast turns, and honesty at a low price beats false promises at a high one every time. Before you buy anything from a brand with a history like this one, run this fast checklist first. Check who currently owns the brand and what else that parent company manufactures. Ownership tells you more about future quality than the label on the tag ever will. Read the actual written warranty terms, not the marketing headline on the product page, before you ever need to rely on either one of them. Match the specific product line to your specific trip. A flagship name printed on the box does not guarantee flagship construction inside it anymore. Check recent reviews for the exact model you're considering, not brand-wide sentiment, because one product line inside a catalog can be genuinely excellent, while another line inside that same catalog is not. And always verify that the materials, the fill power, and the pole specifications are actually named on the page, not just described in vague words like rugged, trail-ready, or adventure-ready, because vague words are where buyers get fooled every single time. None of this takes more than a few extra minutes before you check out. Those few minutes are the difference between gear that holds up when the weather turns and gear that becomes the next entry in someone's logbook. Outdoor conditions do not care about brand logos or 70 years of history. They care whether the gear performs when the weather turns and nobody is around to bail you out. Drop the brand you currently own down in the comments and tell me how many trips or how many miles you've actually put on it. Tell me exactly what failed and what you wish somebody had told you before you bought it. Tell me if you've ever fought a warranty claim on gear that was supposed to be covered for life and how that fight actually went. And tell me which legacy outdoor brand's ownership history you want me to dig into next, because this pattern is bigger than one badge. And my logbook has plenty of room left for more.